Once a ranger,
Always a ranger.
It's Morphin Time!
Power Rangers helped raise an entire generation of superheroes before many of us were exposed to darker and more complex superhero franchises. Almost every 1990s kid, including me, grew up watching these unbelievably cool heroes come together for their iconic Morphin Time and beat the life out of some city-wrecking monster. But when many of us reached adulthood, especially in the age of instant information, we started hearing about something called the Power Rangers curse. Depending on who tells the story, this supposed curse has been blamed for deaths, criminal cases, career struggles, and personal tragedies involving people connected to the franchise. But what exactly is the Power Rangers curse? Is there really a disturbing pattern, or have fans simply grouped together unrelated events involving a franchise that has employed hundreds of actors over more than 3 decades? There is also a darker and much more factual story involving low pay, non-union contracts, unsafe working conditions, racism, and homophobic harassment. So, in today's video, I'm going to explore where the idea of this curse came from and separate documented reality from coincidence, exaggeration, and internet mythology. Hang tight with me until the end of the video, and let's get started.
And the same goes for Rita.
Original cast: the first 6 Rangers. Austin St. John, the Red Ranger's federal fraud case. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers would not have been the same without Jason Lee Scott standing at the center of the original team. Played by Austin St. John, Jason was the Red Ranger and represented discipline, courage, morality, and leadership in a world filled with monsters and giant robots. Back then, it was difficult to imagine a Power Rangers team without the Red Ranger standing in the middle. However, St. John's real life eventually became connected to a serious federal criminal case. His first major dispute with the franchise happened while Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was at the height of its early success. St. John, Walter Emmanuel Jones, and Thuy Trang left during the 2nd season following contract and compensation disputes. The original cast worked under non-union agreements and received no residual payments from reruns or a share of the franchise's massive merchandising success. St. John later returned as Jason in Power Rangers Zeo, becoming the temporary Gold Ranger. Zeo ran for 50 episodes, not 79 as stated in the original draft. He also returned for later franchise appearances and remained active at fan conventions. In 2022, federal prosecutors charged St. John, whose legal name is Jason Lawrence Geiger, in connection with a scheme involving fraudulent Paycheck Protection Program applications. The wider alleged scheme involved approximately $3.5 million. Prosecutors said St. John personally received hundreds of thousands of dollars through loans connected to the applications. He later pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. On May 1, 2025, he avoided imprisonment and was sentenced to 5 years of probation. He was also ordered to pay more than $225,000 in restitution. It would therefore be inaccurate to say that he pleaded guilty while continuing to deny all criminal activity. A guilty plea is a formal admission to the offense covered by the agreement, although defendants may still dispute details about their role or responsibility. For fans, the contrast remains uncomfortable. Jason Lee Scott was one of children's television's most memorable moral leaders. The actor behind him later became involved in a serious federal fraud case. But this is evidence of a crime committed by an individual, not evidence that a fictional franchise carries a supernatural curse. Walter Emmanuel Jones, the Black Ranger's fight for respect. The next original Ranger is my personal favorite. Walter Emmanuel Jones played Zach Taylor, the original Black Ranger and one of the coolest characters in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Unlike several other people discussed in this video, Jones is not known for a major criminal case or a personal tragedy that could reasonably be connected to the so-called curse. His most significant problems involved the treatment of the original cast and some troubling production decisions. Jones left the show alongside Austin St. John and Thuy Trang during the 2nd season after contract negotiations broke down. The actors wanted improved pay and better conditions after the show became an enormous international success. Jones has also discussed an offensive behind-the-scenes incident involving a cultural festival episode. According to Jones, he was presented with bananas as part of imagery intended to represent black culture. He refused to perform the material and considered it insulting. The production changed the scene. Jones has described the incident as thoughtless stupidity rather than claiming that everyone involved in the show was deliberately or openly racist. The wider issue involving Zach's color designation is also more complicated than it initially appears. A black actor played the Black Ranger while Vietnamese actress Thuy Trang played the Yellow Ranger. Head writer Tony Oliver later acknowledged that the combination looked deeply insensitive and called it a mistake the team had failed to notice at the time. Jones, however, has defended his casting. He has said that he felt proud to portray a major black television superhero and did not see wearing the Black Ranger suit as an insult. That distinction matters. We can acknowledge careless decisions and racist imagery without taking away Jones's own interpretation of what Zach represented. After leaving the show, Jones continued working in acting, voice performance, dance, and entertainment. He returned as Zach in the 2023 Netflix special Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always. His story is not an example of a supernatural curse. It is an example of an actor demanding dignity, fair compensation, and respect from a franchise that did not always provide those things. Amy Jo Johnson, the Pink Ranger's life beyond the franchise. Before discussing the darker stories, I want to talk about one of my favorite Pink Rangers. Kimberly Hart was energetic, athletic, compassionate, and enormously popular among children who grew up watching Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Amy Jo Johnson faced many of the same working conditions as her castmates. The show was produced cheaply, the actors worked long hours, and the original contracts did not reflect how successful the franchise eventually became. Johnson also performed demanding physical material and has spoken about how little protection or financial security the cast received. She left during the third season in 1995. Unlike what the original draft suggested, she did not immediately become the lead character in Felicity. Kerry Russell played the title role. Johnson joined Felicity as Julie Emmerich, one of the show's major supporting characters, and remained a main cast member for several seasons. During the production's early period, Johnson lost her mother, Christine, to cancer in 1998. That was a devastating personal loss, but Felicity did not simply fall apart afterward. The show continued, and Johnson maintained an active career. She later appeared in Flashpoint and numerous other film and television projects. She also became a singer, songwriter, director, screenwriter, and independent filmmaker. Her directing credits include The Space Between and Tammy's Always Dying. She also returned to the Power Rangers universe through comic book writing, co-writing Mighty Morphin Power Rangers: The Return. Johnson's life included grief, difficult working conditions, and career changes, but describing her survival and success as somehow escaping a curse would diminish her own talent and decisions. Her story demonstrates that former Power Rangers actors were capable of building meaningful careers beyond the costumes. David Yost, the Blue Ranger's homophobic harassment and conversion therapy ordeal. The more we learn about the original production, the more disturbing parts of its history become. David Yost played Billy Cranston, the original Blue Ranger. Billy was intelligent, loyal, awkward, inventive, and one of the franchise's longest-serving original characters. Yost appeared throughout Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and continued into Power Rangers Zeo. Behind the scenes, however, he was struggling with his sexuality while enduring repeated homophobic harassment. Yost has said that members of the production crew used anti-gay slurs against him and questioned other cast members about his sexuality. He eventually walked away during Zeo because he could no longer endure the humiliation. His sudden departure forced the production to complete Billy's storyline without his normal on-screen participation. After leaving, Yost underwent conversion therapy in an attempt to change his sexual orientation. Conversion therapy is discredited and harmful. Yost later described suffering a severe breakdown and undergoing psychiatric hospitalization before eventually reaching a place of self-acceptance. It is important to correct one detail from the original draft. He did not courageously come out during the show and then receive harassment because of that public decision. He was struggling privately and had not publicly come out at the time. The harassment targeted what people assumed or believed about him. Yost eventually spoke publicly about being gay and about what happened on the set. He returned as Billy in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always, and later appeared in Power Rangers Cosmic Fury. His return does not erase the harm done to him, but it gave him the opportunity to reclaim a character and legacy that should never have been poisoned by other people's prejudice. This is not evidence of a supernatural curse. It is evidence of workplace homophobia and the damage it can cause. Tui Trang, the Yellow Ranger's fatal car crash at 27. The idea of a Power Rangers curse gained enormous emotional power after the death of Tui Trang. Trang played Trini Kwan, the original Yellow Ranger. It is now impossible to discuss the casting without acknowledging how uncomfortable it looks that an Asian actress played the Yellow Ranger while a black actor played the Black Ranger. However, saying that Trang was intentionally cast because the producers wanted an Asian woman in yellow goes beyond the evidence. The unaired pilot featured a different performer as the Yellow Ranger, and head writer Tony Oliver later said that the problematic racial association was not noticed until after the casting choices had been made. That does not make the result less insensitive. It means the problem appears to have come from carelessness rather than a documented plan to create a racist joke. Trang was born in South Vietnam. As a child, she fled the country with members of her family and eventually settled in the United States. She studied martial arts and engineering before pursuing acting. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers became her first role. Like Austin St. John and Walter Emmanuel Jones, Trang left during the second season because of contract and pay disputes. She later appeared in Spy Hard and played the villain Kali in The Crow, City of Angels. On September 3, 2001, Trang was traveling with friends in California when their vehicle crashed after the driver lost control. Trang suffered fatal internal injuries and died while being transported for medical care. She was only 27 years old. Her death shocked fans and devastated people who had worked with her. Later, Power Rangers Productions honored her memory and once and always built much of its story around Trini's legacy. Her death was a terrible accident. It was not evidence that Power Rangers caused her fate, but because she had played such an important childhood hero and died so young, her loss became one of the central events fans cited when talking about the supposed curse. Jason David Frank, the Green and White Ranger's death at 49. It is impossible to discuss the original Power Rangers without mentioning Jason David Frank. Frank played Tommy Oliver, one of the most popular characters in the entire franchise. Tommy began as the evil Green Ranger under Rita Repulsa's control before joining the team. He later became the White Ranger, Zeo Ranger V Red, the first Red Turbo Ranger, and the Black Dino Ranger in Power Rangers Dino Thunder. He also returned for later anniversary appearances, including a Green Ranger appearance connected to Super Megaforce. Frank was not the Red Dino Thunder Ranger as the original draft claimed. He played the Black Dino Ranger and served as a mentor to that season's younger team. Outside the franchise, Frank was a lifelong martial artist, instructor, fighter, and convention personality. Fans often viewed him as the real-life embodiment of Tommy Oliver. Frank died by suicide in November 2022 at the age of 49. His wife, Tammy Frank, publicly confirmed the cause of death. She also asked people to stop turning their family's tragedy into gossip and unsupported theories. That request deserves respect. The original script attempted to connect his death directly to the loss of his brother, fan pressure, convention behavior, relationship difficulties, and a supposed lack of counseling. Those claims cannot be presented as established causes. Human mental health is far more complicated than one visible event, and outsiders usually do not possess enough information to explain why a person died by suicide. His wife said that they had been trying to reconcile and that she did not know he was considering ending his life. It was devastating to his family, friends, and fans. It should be discussed with compassion rather than treated as dramatic proof of a supernatural curse. Beyond the original 6 other cast members with tragic or controversial outcomes. Ricardo Medina Jr., the former Red Ranger convicted of manslaughter. Now we are moving into much darker territory. Ricardo Medina Jr. played Cole Evans, the Red Wild Force Ranger, and later portrayed the villain Decker in Power Rangers Samurai. In January 2015, Medina was living with Joshua Sutter at a residence in Green Valley, California, north of Los Angeles. The original draft incorrectly placed the property near San Francisco. An argument occurred at the residence. Medina went into a bedroom with his girlfriend and Sutter followed. Medina stabbed Sutter with a sword kept in the room. He then called emergency services. Medina initially maintained that he had acted in self-defense. Prosecutors later charged him with murder. In 2017, he pleaded guilty to one felony count of voluntary manslaughter and admitted using the sword. He was sentenced to 6 years in state prison. The original script claimed that Sutter was stabbed approximately 10 times and that the number of wounds alone proved murder. Reliable reports describe multiple stab wounds, but the exact number should not be asserted without the underlying medical or court record. It is also inaccurate to say Medina was found guilty of murder. He pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter. The killing and conviction are documented facts. Connecting those facts to a fictional Power Rangers curse does not explain what happened. A crime remains the responsibility of the person who committed it.
He's tough! I'm just...
Monica May, a career change, not a curse. Monica May played Elizabeth Z. Delgado, the Yellow Ranger in Power Rangers SPD. She later stepped away from mainstream acting and worked in other fields, including hairstyling and burlesque performance under the stage name Miss May. She has also maintained a paid adult content presence online. But this section needs an important correction. Choosing adult entertainment is not a tragedy, criminal scandal, death, or evidence of a curse. It is a legal career decision made by an adult. The original draft tried to justify the decision by claiming that she had no money, that her previous work failed to support her desired lifestyle, and that limited acting opportunities forced her onto the platform. Unless Monica May has directly and publicly explained her finances in those exact terms, we should not invent those motivations for her. She has continued to attend conventions and maintain a relationship with Power Rangers fans. Some people may disapprove of her career. Others may see it as a personal choice, involving control over her work and image. Either way, placing her next to deaths, domestic violence, fraud, and manslaughter shows how loosely the so-called curse is sometimes defined. A former child show actor choosing adult work does not prove that something terrible happened to her. It proves that performers can make career choices their childhood audiences never expected.
Awesome!
Ninja form! Oh, yeah!
Pua Magasiva, domestic violence, accountability, and his death. Pua Magasiva played Shane Clark, the Red Wind Ranger in Power Rangers Ninja Storm. He was also widely known in New Zealand for playing Vinnie Cruz on the long-running soap opera Shortland Street. Magasiva died in May 2019 at the age of 38. After his death, reporting restrictions were lifted concerning his conviction for assaulting his wife, Liz Sadler. Sadler later spoke publicly about the domestic violence she had experienced. The documented conduct included physical assault and degrading treatment. The original draft contained a dangerous statement suggesting that in domestic violence, the abusive husband is equally victimized by his own rage or alcohol use. That is not acceptable. Alcohol may increase risk or worsen behavior, but it does not remove responsibility. An abusive partner is responsible for the violence they choose to commit. The survivor is not equally responsible for being harmed. Discussing Magasiva's death and his violence requires care because two truths can exist at once. His death was tragic for people who loved him. He was also responsible for serious abuse against his wife. Acknowledging one does not erase the other. People experiencing domestic violence should contact local emergency services, trusted support networks, or an accredited domestic violence organization in their country. People worried about their own violent self-behavior should seek professional intervention before anybody is harmed. Accountability is not cruelty. It is necessary for safety and change.
Zap him again!
System-wide failures, non-union exploitation, and on-set homophobia. By now, it should be clear that the Power Rangers curse is not one coherent phenomenon. A fatal road accident has no factual connection to a federal fraud case. A performer choosing adult content has no connection to a manslaughter conviction. A death by suicide cannot responsibly be reduced to a television franchise. However, the original Mighty Morphin production did have serious systemic problems. The early show operated as a non-union production. Cast members have said they earned roughly $600 per week while working extremely long schedules. Reports differ slightly regarding exact rates and hours, so claims such as precisely $730 each week or exactly 40 episodes every season should not be presented as universal facts. The central point remains well supported. The original actors were paid modestly compared with the enormous success of the franchise. They did not receive residuals from reruns. They did not receive a percentage of the toy and merchandise revenue generated using their characters. Austin St. John, Walter Emmanuel Jones, and Thuy Trang left during Season 2 after negotiations for better compensation failed. The show also involved physically demanding work and safety concerns. Cast members performed stunts and worked under schedules that would receive much greater scrutiny today. David Yost endured homophobic harassment. Walter Jones has described culturally offensive material. And the non-union structure limited the bargaining power of performers who had helped turn the show into a global sensation. These problems did not magically cause every later tragedy involving a Power Rangers actor, but they reveal a production system that frequently failed to value and protect the people behind the helmets. When we combine every death, crime, controversy, and career change under the label of the Power Rangers curse, we create a dramatic story. But dramatic does not always mean true. Power Rangers has employed hundreds of actors across more than 30 years. Within a group that large, there will inevitably be deaths, illnesses, crimes, disputes, career changes, and personal tragedies. The curse becomes convincing only when unrelated events are collected together and everything ordinary is left out. The real darkness is more specific. The original cast worked under poor contracts. Some endured unsafe conditions. David Yost experienced homophobic abuse. Several actors left because they believed the franchise's success was not reflected in their pay or treatment. Those are documented failures. They deserve more attention than a supernatural internet myth. Austin St. John's fraud conviction was his responsibility. Ricardo Medina Jr.'s manslaughter conviction was his responsibility. Pua Magasiva's domestic violence was his responsibility. Thuy Trang's death was a tragic accident. Jason David Frank's death was a personal and family tragedy that should be discussed compassionately. Monica May's career belongs to her. None of these stories needs a curse to make it serious. So perhaps the darker truth is not that becoming a Power Ranger dooms a person. It is that childhood nostalgia can make us forget that actors are real human beings working inside an industry capable of exploitation, prejudice, danger, success, failure, and tragedy. On that note, this video is over. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Also, let us know in the comments which Power Ranger meant the most to you while growing up. Until then, goodbye, and we will see you in the next one.